Welcome to a new drawing slash story series, this one taking place on the tabletop, more specifically Dungeons and Dragons. So I gathered up a group of 5 of us, so me the DM then 4 other friends. We sat down for what was most people's first session of D&D. After asking them for pointers, I had created characters for them so we could jump straight into the action. Now one odd request was that their character wanted to be a bird. Or like half bird, half human type thing. So we flick through the monster manual and I find the race he's talking about. Do it! So there we are, in possibly the most common and tame intro for a D&D campaign, a tavern. Of course the bartender's a dwarf, and of course some trouble breaks out to introduce them to combat early on. They start a scuffle with some goblins. Because violence is the answer to everything, they end up beating them into submission and the real campaign begins. A crash of lightning outside strikes as townfolk scream and clattering of swords is heard. The group rushes to the window to see, barely behind the mist, a necromancer and skeletons, like a buttload. They rush out and clear the skeletons, but before they can make it to the necromancer, he turns into a raven and disappears. It's quite the trick, everyone applauds. Oops, bird. They speak with the bartender, who explains how the Ravens tribe has been stealing and hoarding it in their vault. He obviously asks the adventurers if they would lay siege or heist to the vault and retrieve the items. The adventurers say no, and that's where this story ends. Or is it? Well, no. It's more Laurel and Hardy, slapstick comedy at its finest as they crash and stumble their way, eventually, to the vault, convincing an elderly gatekeeper to accompany them. So they come to a massive door, and as he cracks it open, it's revealed the vault is full with nothing. The players are puzzled and roll perception and arcana checks when the wizard notices the old man is wearing a magical monocle. Something he's seen before, granting the wearer the ability to see things in a room nobody else could. So I assume they will sweet talk him or trick him somehow, but again it doesn't go as planned, and they lead him around the corner and... how can I put this? They introduce him to Punch and Judy, except Judy doesn't show up, it's just Punch. So they come back to the vault, old man's monocle in hand, and slowly begin looting the room. But again, the place is filled to the brim with gold, weapons, potions, books, but they don't want anyone to notice what they've done, so they don't want to take too much. Okay, but then they take one magical item with the Ravens tribe insignia on it. Ladies. And finally the bird picks up a teapot, and I explain this is nothing but a sentimental item. He weighed it up, and I assumed he was about to put it back down. And he sort of does, but he puts it back down to the floor as he hurls it, smashing it into pieces. Now as a DM, I'm thinking of a million ways this might come back to haunt him. Eventually they leave the room with the items they were asked to retrieve, with a knowledge of how the building works. They leave out of a different door and are greeted with a rickety bridge hung over a pit filled to the brim with hellfire, burning bright green, filling the air with a toxic gas. They all pile across, and without realising run into a gelatinous cube, being eaten and slowly burnt as they fumble around inside. The bard works out something involving ropes and a chandelier above, and manages to save the group before playing the cube a lullaby, and eventually they squish it and make it out. Constantly the first session seemed to be anything I had planned being stomped on, and a different, stranger detour being taken. But that's pretty much what D&D is for a lot of groups. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. As I go, I'm going to be spending more time on the art and slowly improving the quality. This was really just to test sort of stick characters to see how fast I could do it. So hopefully you join me for part 2 and plenty of other comic videos.